There's Allie.
Hi, friend.
So nice to see you.
I love anytime I get to see you. Julie!
Julie's here. Did you know that the other was going to be here?
I didn't realize. That's amazing.
So
hey,
amazing.
Allie and I were in a mastermind together a few years ago.
Yeah, 2017. Just a little bit has changed.
Just a little bit.
You know, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again, that I think one of the greatest gifts ever in my entire life is the human beings that I've gotten to become friends with because of doing a podcast, because of taking the seat at the table and having the courage to say a few things. I get to meet women like this. And you would think, because I think a lot of us have seen a lot of competition in our lives, you might think that, you know, what do people say? It's lonely at the top. I think it's quite the opposite. I feel like the more courage I've had, the more that I've been able to create in the world, the more I've called in friends where I can literally just show up and I don't have to prove myself. I just get a lot of love and we support each other in a way that is so generous. And I feel it is so reciprocal. Like, I think we all just do that so well for each other. So Allie and Julie are amongst those very special women in what I would consider like an inner circle of peers. And I'm so grateful that you're both here. And you both have incredible podcasts. Plus, they're also great moms and they're also writing books and also doing so much. So why don't we just start this way? I'm going to go to each of you. We'll start with Allie first, just because on my screen, you're in closest proximity. And we'll just have you intro yourself a little bit. And then we'll have Julie do the same thing. And then we're going to sort of like unpack some of the layers, not just of what makes an amazing podcast, but really the stuff that you guys have really mastered, which is how do you fully find success? How do you fully find all of the intangibles? And maybe we can even talk strategy too. We can kind of put them all together for a fun next hour. Who's excited? Type a 1 in the chat if you're excited about this. Me too. It's going to be fun. It already is. Let's go. So Allie Casazza, welcome. Tell us a little bit about you and a little bit about what your podcast is about, what your platform is about.
Yeah. So I'm Allie. My podcast is The Purpose Show. And I've been podcasting for 6 years, but I've had The Purpose Show since 2018, the January 2018. And I love podcasting so much, but as a person and my business, what I really love doing is helping women with what feels heavy in their home, in their lives, their calendars, their spirits, and simplifying the hell out of it. So it's so much lighter and they have space for, you know, bettering their relationship with themselves and others and doing things that they always thought they didn't have time for, and just increasing abundance, increasing joy, and really aligning their reality with how they really want to feel and what their ideal life would look like. I think we just get in our own way a lot and overcomplicate things. So that is what my show is about.
You said that so well. And over the course of the next hour, you guys are going to get to know a little bit more about Allie. And I really suggest that you guys will follow her, because it's very often that people will say a lot of words, but they don't necessarily have the life that backs up what they say. And not only has Allie created such a delicious world for herself and her family, but she did not have what you would think were the resources necessary to make that happen. She created those resources. And I will never forget the detail of you sharing that when you started to even consider creating an online business and coaching other women, you didn't have the means to afford tampons. Like, you were in this season of your life where you were like, you know that things are not great financially when you can't just go grab a box of tampons. And we're all girls here. Isn't it so funny? Like when my husband's at the store and he's like, what do you need? And I say something like that, he's like, I'm like, it's 2021. Like, could you just like, there is never a time where women just like don't have an understanding. Like, you could do it. I know you could do it. I know you can. But anyway, it is the truth that was the case. And sitting there in that little in that reality, which at the time was small, right? You've created something so big and took so many people along with you. And I'm so impressed and proud to know you.
Thank you, friend. Okay. You always know how to make me almost cry, but I'm not going to. And you're so kind and you're such a light. This is why I was telling Brian this morning, like what my day was looking like. And I'm like, I get to talk to Kathy. So obviously I'm going to be on cloud 9 around lunch.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm so happy. Well, you do that constantly for everybody. And I just want to highlight it. And I want you guys to buy her book, which just came out recently, because it's so good to meet women who have that much capacity for vulnerability, and then to see how businesses grow and lives are changed because someone has the ability to raise their hand and show up before they have any of the things, before any of the things are dialed in. But the one thing they do have is that intention, right? Is that vibration, is that clarity of purpose. And that's why her show is called The Purpose Show. And if you guys only really had watched, right, in like a time lapse video where she was and where she is and everything in between, I think that you would be gobsmacked. So we're going to come back to Allie in a second, but so much for you guys to dive into there, just following along with her. And Julie, similarly, in terms of the wow factor, why don't you tell them a little bit about your podcast and what your platform is designed to do for the people who come and follow you?
Yes. So I'll start with platform. My background is in PR. I was a music and book publicist for over 10 years before I got into this lovely, amazing, crazy, never ending, always changing online world that we all live in.
Well said.
Yes. And I came into it with this idea of how do I help leaders, experts, women show up and create influence in a way that gives them freedom. And to me, that really is iconic success, that really gives them that success that they are looking for. And so I was kind of seeing that, that idea of influencer and influence, it was kind of getting a really bad rap, because you would see just butt models all over Instagram, or people, selling affiliate links or gummy bear hair. And like, that's what people were thinking was influencers. And I'm like, oh no, it's so much bigger than that. It's so much more magical than that. And so I started the Influencer podcast back in 2017 as a way to kind of take that word and flip it on its head. And I do that by not only sharing personal stories of my own journey and the coaching that I do for female leaders and entrepreneurs, but then also bringing incredible people on like Kathy to share that and how they've been able to really create influence in their own life and what that means to their business, to their families, to the women and people that they serve. And so that is the Influencer podcast. And it's stemmed upon that platform of wanting to help people become globally known and create that iconic success that goes outside of just the followers and the fame and the fans and all of it.
You know what I love seeing people get it when they actually get the memo of who they're supposed to be in the world. And I want you guys to understand something. So I know Julie well enough to have been to her home, and it literally could bring tears to my eyes when I tell you that if you look at someone like Julie, your initial thought is she's so beautiful, right? God-given beauty, that she might not be, right? She might not be the kind of person who is also so kind and so humble, because often when somebody's given that gift, right, from a young age, they don't have to necessarily have all those other treasures, because people will just sidle up next to them, right? Follow them along, because that's part of the way that things seem to work. And I can just tell you that the love and kindness that I felt in your home from you, your kids, your husband, it was so palpable, and you're so genuine, and everyone feels safe with you. And for you to get that you were noticing girls or anyone who put on airs and was gaining influence that way. And for you to say, you know what, there's another way to do it. And there's a way to do it where you really bring people with you, but you bring them with you for something so much deeper. I love you for getting that. I love you for actually being that. I love you for turning out to be the person who is really, like, my husband doesn't like most people because they are so arrogant and whatever. We left her house. He's like, they're so nice. Like, you could just like, right. And I love that you are showing up for that assignment, really. And I'm always a little bit kind of like amazed, like, oh yeah, that's cool that there are people like that. And really for both of you women, like, as everybody, you know, is here, and we'll put a piece of this on the podcast. So for those of everybody who's listening right now, this is so important, right? For women to see examples of other women who get to have a life where they claim something very big and they make an impact, and they do not have to sacrifice their integrity. And they're able to have both monetary success as well as true success in the way that they're imprinting the world. This is so good. And I think so many people think that at some point, if they were to have more of an influence or more of the money, some of the integrity does have to be traded. Some of the goodness in who we are has to somehow be swapped out for something that's a little bit better in the branding aspect. And it's not true. And I hope that you will see this and then utilize it to pull yourself forward and know that this is so needed and so necessary. So now let's kind of like dive into the how, okay? And let's start from the mind, because that's really where it always starts. So Allie, let's take us back to when the lights turned on. But let's see if you now, looking in hindsight, can figure out what shifted from 3 days earlier, where you were like having to sort of decide what you were going to buy at Costco and what you couldn't afford, and where you were allowed to show up and where you really weren't meant to show up. What shifted from that, let's call it a typical Thursday, to 1 week later when you sat in that house and said, wait a minute, what is that? So that people could maybe tap into that for themselves and make that shift internally.
Yes, the shift was a super hard truth that none of us ever want to look at. And it was, I am doing this to myself. No one is coming to get me. No one is doing this to me. I have created this for myself, and I hate it. I hate it for me. I hate it for everyone experiencing the same thing or worse. I hate it for my children. I hate who I am because of these external circumstances. Nobody feels good about themselves when they are standing at the store and the choice is between tooth care and feminine care. Yep. And you can't get both. It was, I am doing this to myself, and it is unacceptable. And I love myself too much to continue down this path. So what the hell am I going to do though? What am I going to do? And that question launched me into, I'd never done inner work of any kind. It was actually kind of forbidden from the religion I grew up in. And I threw it all out the window and just started to look at what I was thinking, because I had learned that is huge. What was I believing and thinking about myself and my life that was keeping me in this place? And yeah, I can talk more about what came up, but that was the shift.
Okay, say more. That is so good. It's so good. Say a little bit more.
Yeah. So for me, there was a lot of things, like a laundry list of just limiting beliefs and things that were just, they were true. They were true because I believed them. And to stop believing something you've unconsciously believed your entire life is very difficult. I'll share one, the big one, like the big mama that I found in the back of my mind, was when I was growing up, I was raised by a Cuban immigrant, and it was very like America, privilege. Like, we earned this for you. You need to go to college. If you don't go to college, you will never have money. You will literally be flipping burgers your whole life. You'll never have anything. College, college, college. Well, I'm a very spontaneous, creative entrepreneur, and no one told me that. And I was lost. So I dropped out of college and went to beauty school. And then I dropped out of that because I hate talking to people by force and, and touching heads. And I got married and had a baby and just disappointed everybody, and except myself. And then I did disappoint myself later because there was the truth that I didn't have any money and I messed up, and here we go. And I'm so ungrateful. My dad worked from the bottom up to give me this, and I threw it away. And I love my dad more than anything. Like, he and I were always really close. So I was like, I don't want to, basically, if I prove him wrong, I'm going to hurt him. If I make money, if I'm successful, I'll hurt him because I didn't go to college. And that was the big one. And when I realized that, I remember I was in the bathtub and I was working through a Jen Sincero book, and I realized that, and it hit me so hard. It was very, very heavy. So that was like my big cause of a lot of the pain I was allowing in my life.
I just got chills. Type a 1 in the chat if that just hits you like right here, like so hard, because isn't it just so, it's really astonishing to think that there are beliefs that are in your blind spot that are so, like you said, heavy that you can't move forward. You're holding like this 20-ton belief and you don't even see that it's affecting everything you're doing. So it's incredible. And I do love that that's why when you were willing to like look at it, right? Like when you said, nobody likes that. Let's be real. Nobody likes having to decide between toothpaste and tampons. Okay. Like that's where it starts. It's like turning the lights on and saying, you know what? It's not fine. It's not. And I'm not going to pretend like it is. That takes a lot of courage. And then to be able to have that courage is why you get the gift of going, oh, behind that courage of actually seeing what's here, I actually saw like what is really here. And that is fascinating. I had Jillian Michaels on the show, and she talked about people in their quest to lose the weight. And so often they couldn't lose the weight because they had a parent who was obese, and they felt so disloyal and felt as though they were leaving this person behind, or that this person would feel like not loved all of a sudden because their kid got thin. And
it's like an identity, a family culture, like our tribe mentality is so ingrained. It's primal.
Isn't that amazing?
So yeah. So to say basically, not only am I disregarding you and the tribe mentality, which is your root chakra, your safety.
Yeah.
Not only am I throwing all of that out, I'm proving it wrong.
Yep.
You're an idiot is basically what I felt I would be saying to my dad that I loved so much, that gave me so much. And I can talk about digging through all of that and all of it, but what has become true could not be further from the opposite. Like it is, my dad comes to me for business advice now. I'm helping him. He doesn't need to break his back in labor in his company anymore. He can create a course. Like he's so proud, and we're so much closer. And he told me, he was just here visiting because we moved away from them now, but he said, I'm so glad that my parents brought me to this country and that I worked my ass off and did all of this so that you could do better. You can do it without having to break your back or have carpal tunnel, and you have more wealth. And then he was like, you're my retirement. Like we joke about it now, but it's I made it better. You don't have to keep working so hard as your ancestors to prove anything or earn anything. We're supposed to know better, do better. And that's what I didn't realize then. And that's what was keeping me stuck. So I was making myself miserable to be in line with that, with the people that I was around, to stay loyal unnecessarily. What's really an honor to my father and his legacy and his hard work and his entrepreneurship and all of my ancestors that were killed in Cuba for wanting to have a business, because that's not allowed, is to be here and grow an empire and change the whole world. That's what it brings honor and freedom. Not, oh, like I just can't, like, you know, have it too good because I didn't go to college. It's all ridiculous, but it's still of value, and it still is heavy, and it still needs to be worked through. It's true for you right now, but it doesn't have to be true for you in the future.
Oh my God. Type a heart in the chat or put a heart in your Zoom screen if this is filling you up right now. So good. Yeah. You see how we're having a conversation about business. We're going to come to Julie in a second now. We're having a conversation about business, but the depth, right? The stakes are so much higher than whether or not you're going to do a course or an ebook, right? And when we really get this, not only, and this is why I've always said, if you want the best possible therapy in the world, become an entrepreneur. Because as you show up for the endeavor, the amount of opportunities to break through your limits and to liberate yourself from so much codependency, oh, there's nothing like it. So get ready. So Julie, for you, same question. What was that internal shift that you can now look back in hindsight and recognize that happened so that you could break through and create something where you allowed in the visibility and allowed in the success? What was it? What had to happen? What had to shift?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of us can have many different rock bottoms. But the one that was probably the most recent that then made me really kind of have to dig deep was that I amassed about $30,000 in credit card debt 10 years ago and hid it from my husband. And he found out. And so I get a call from him saying, when were you going to tell me about the credit card? And of course, I just go into my survival mode of like, how do I fix this? How do I fix this? Because I'm really good at fixing things. It's probably why, I got into the business that I did. I'm good at nurturing things. I'm good at taking care of people. I'm good at taking care of talent. I married an actor. Like, it's part of my makeup. And all of this kind of stems from, when I was growing up and kind of my origin story of having to do a lot of that. I grew up in a very small Appalachian town in Tennessee. My dad lived in extreme poverty growing up. They literally lived in a shack until they moved to a double wide trailer, which was a really big deal.
Oh my God.
I remember going like mid 90s, fourth, fifth, I'm 37. So fourth grade, third grade, I remember having to walk to the outhouse to use the bathroom because my grandparents could not afford indoor plumbing. So it was very just, trailer park. That's kind of how they grew up. And so I grew up around this mentality that everything had to be a struggle. Everything had to be, my mom would rather live under a bridge than take a handout, and so I had all of these belief systems modeled to me about how everything had to be hard, everything had to be tough, everything had to be a struggle. But you didn't want people to see that. And so it's all about the presentation of fake it till you make it, look the part, everything's fine, just throw that under the rug. And so I had to really reintroduce a new vision in my life and really unlearn a lot of those patterns and behavior that were keeping me stuck or causing me to kind of have upper limits. I would make money and then I would have to like spend it all because I didn't think that I was worthy of keeping it, or I would, and that was my big thing. I know for some women, they like hoard it, they save it, they won't use it at all. With me, I spent it all. And then it also gave me this camaraderie with other women. Like it felt good to walk into a Sephora and buy a lipstick and talk to other women, especially as a new mom when I was at home with a baby all the time. It felt good to feel powerful, like in that exchange of accumulating things and buying things. And, I remember my mom, because we didn't have any money growing up, she would buy things and she would like run to the closet and hide her shopping bags in the closet so my dad wouldn't see that and so I thought that was normal. I thought that every woman in the world bought things and then got home and ran to the closet and hid them in the closet. I did not know that that wasn't normal or healthy or a lot of things. And so when the debt happened, and then I would make up and tell myself, it's not like I'm going to Rodeo Drive and buying Louboutins, right? Like I'm going to Sephora and buying a $17 lipstick. I'm going to, get my nails done for $20. But over the years, those things accumulated. And I would always be waiting for this, like, once I get this new PR gig, then I'll pay the credit card off and then he won't find out. Or once this happens, or once John lands this new role, like he won't care. It's like all of this crazy fantasy, unmanageable. It was insane. It was insanity. And so I had to get real and right in that moment with myself. And then that really opened a door to, well, what is my purpose here? Why do I keep masking, what I want with taking care of other people or with spending money on things or with acting like everything is okay? And so I realized in that moment as well, because I was still doing PR at the time, I was miserable in my work. Like I was breaking out in hives, working for people, making nothing. It was just awful. So it was kind of like all of this was like forcing me to this new metamorphosis, if you will. And that's when I kind of stepped into this new space. I got help. I got a coach. Like I'm a firm believer, like every coach needs a coach and they need a coach and they need a coach. Like I immediately went and I was like, I don't know what this is, but like I need something. And so I remember talking to a friend of mine and I was like, I don't know like how to go get help. And she was like, well, go and find someone who seems to have what it is you want. Like they have the life you want, like someone who just seems to kind of have their shit together in the way that you want, like, and you'll know, because you're energetically, you'll be attracted to that. So I found a woman, I started doing just, life coaching, energy work, all of that. From that, really settled into a new purpose, a new vision for myself, created my Pitch It Perfect course, which I still have today. This was back in 2016. And then that continued to unfold. And that's really why I, show up and do what I do now. And I really think it goes back to that idea of, if you change the script changes. And so, remembering that we don't have control over everything, but we do have control over our thoughts that dictate our feelings, that dictate the reactions and the results that we get in life. We can't necessarily change other people, places, and things, but we can change our thoughts and our responses and our reactions to them. And so that was a big thing for me. And a lot of that really stemmed from the vision. And, I'll even have, the women that I coach in my mastermind now, they're like, Julie, should I do this or should I do that? And I'm like, I have no freaking idea what you should do, but your vision does, the vision knows. So what does the vision say? And so for me, it's really coming back to that idea of the vision. And there's another acronym that's really helpful for me. If anyone's resonating to this, it's the 3 A's: awareness, acceptance, and action. So first, like being aware of this is the reality of the situation, accepting that this is what it is instead of what I wish it to be. And I think it's for really successful, driven women, like everyone here, it's kind of hard to accept. Like a lot of times I just want to go from awareness to action. Like I don't want to have to sit in the acceptance because I want what I want when I want it and how I want it. And most of the time I get it. And so, and if you're someone that is assertive like that, that's driven like that you're going to find a way to get what you want, then accepting that you can't get what you want, how you want it, and the way you want it, and when you want it can be really hard and icky. And that's when you know you need to settle in it even more. And so having the awareness of what is, accepting it for what is, and then from that being able to take action from there is huge.
Type 2 exclamation points in the chat if you are bowled over by how vulnerable she was just now. Like, how often, I don't care where it is, whether you're listening to a podcast or you're out to dinner with someone, even someone you know well, do they very just easily say these words to you, like as if they just told you they got a cup of coffee, like, this is the debt that I was in, without shame. And yet just the awareness of how much they don't love that was the case. Like, that's why she's such an amazing coach. And by the way, I've known you this long and never knew that your parents come from that. You know, again, Julie is like the picture of like a perfect life out of a magazine. Like, she's gorgeous. Her husband's gorgeous. They live in a beautiful home that she completely renovated. And the wallpaper, oh my God, just the wallpaper. You could write a book on wallpaper choices. It's amazing. Like, I just assumed that you grew up in this, like, you know, big circular driveway estate and your grandparents have generational wealth. I don't know. This is just what you just assume. No wonder you are so nice, because the amount of humility that has been passed down to you is real, right? I want to ask a follow-up question. So now in your life, obviously things are very different, because that story about the credit card is now replaced with a story of making 7 figures, doing something really impactful in the world. So if you had to sum up how the money story has changed for you, like, before I got that feeling of like, I had to just spend it all, right? Had to hide the bags in the closet. Like, how would you now say that belief sounds? Like, what do you hear now about money in your mind that replaced the other one?
Yeah, I mean, money is just an exchange of energy. And so learning that was huge. And then also believing in what's possible. You know, I think that it's important that we got to give ourselves and little girls bigger what ifs, because I think that we are so limited with our idea of money and making money and how it's meant to be used and how it's meant to be in service of others, that it's this, you know, women have a lot of shame around money, a lot of shame around money. We can't make too much. We don't want to make too little. We can't use it. We can't spend. It's like, what are we supposed to do with it? And I think money is meant to be used in the service of yourself, your family, the greater good, and the service of others. And to me, money is just an exchange of energy. And I think that it's a direct reflection of the goodness that I'm putting out into the world. And I don't care. You can be, I mean, my dad literally wore a blue collar to work every day. He worked at an auto plant. He might have not made a lot of money, but the money that he made was the exchange of the work that he was doing. It doesn't make it less than anything else. Just like a garbage man, like, I am so appreciative. I wouldn't want to do that job. I'm so appreciative of my garbage man, and they deserve every freaking penny that they get. And it's truly an exchange of them cleaning up after my crap. Like, yeah. I bow down to people like that. And so yeah. I think that just knowing that, instead of thinking that it's something that needs to be hidden or shameful, I think it's huge. Like that, I don't care about the money. Like, that's BS to me. Now, you may not want people to think that you care about the money more than you care about other people. That's fine. But saying that out into the world, I don't care about them. Of course you care about them. That's like saying, like, I play sports, but I don't care about winning. Of course you care about winning. Like, you need to care about the money. As much as you care about your child, you need to care about the money as if your livelihood depended on it. Yeah. So I look at it that way. And I feel like I have to look at it that way. It's an honor for me to look at it that way. I had parents and grandparents that never went to college. My grandfather had to leave school at 2nd grade to go support his family. It's kind of, it's doing them a disservice to not try to make as much money as I can possibly make to really carry on their lineage. Yeah. So
I mean, this is so good. I want to just highlight one of the things that she said, because we really could talk about 11 of those things for hours. One thing that she just said, money is just an exchange of energy. So why podcasting can then be such a means to making money is because of the quality, the depth of the energy, the way you're being visible, and then how that gets absorbed and how that gets transmitted, right? So this is essential to really understand, right? A lot of people fear, the biggest thing is just giving the energy at all, right? Being visible, like showing up and broadcasting your energy to the world. This is that in of itself is very scary for people. But when we do find a way to harness and channel whatever the energy is, however much life force, however much goodness, however much love, compassion, wisdom we can sort of put forth, to the extent that we can do that more and more and be visible with that, we can exchange that energy for money, which is a form of energy that people will give you in exchange for how much your energy is impacting them. Okay. So now let's talk about two pieces with this podcast, which have to do with that energy exchange. One, building an audience. And then we'll talk about, once you have the audience, how do you help them exchange that energy? How do you monetize it, right? What are the different ways? Because what's really cool is that the three of us we've all done a lot of different things. And so we can kind of touch on the different models that worked for us and that landed for our audiences. So let's start with the building of the audience. So now you have this, you put this into the world. How, for you, Allie, did you start to see the audience build, the audience tell other people, and things start to happen to where more and more people were showing up to actually consume this energy?
I don't look at my podcast as free content, and I'm like whittling it down because like, oh, this is free. Like, I give so much good to my podcast and the content there. I'm going like all in, balls to the wall. Like, I'm as helpful as I possibly can be. However, part of being helpful is my audience is very overwhelmed moms. Moms can't listen to an hour plus conversation. It needs to be 30 minutes. So how much help can I give in 30 minutes? You know what I mean? It just naturally is different than when I'm working with someone. And so I stopped worrying about, well, this is free content, so I don't want to give away too much. Like, I am helping you as much as I can in this 30 minutes we have together every single week. And I also feel like this is really small, and a lot of people do it, but a lot of people don't do it. I just ask them to share. People don't do anything if you don't ask them to or tell them to. So I would say, like, send this to your friends, take a screenshot, share it on Instagram, tag me, and tell me what you're going to do. I don't want you to listen to my show. I want you to do something because you listen to my show. So tell me, what are you going to do about this? How is this going to change your life? And I want you, it's your homework. Like, every episode I say this, just tell them to share it. I'm telling you, like, that has grown my podcast, giving good content and not being like, well, this is free, and just telling them, like, if you listen to this and that's it, like, shame on me. What are you going to do something and tag me. So I want to see it. And I look at every single tag. I reshare every single one. And I feel like that has taken me really far, just even those two things on top of everything else. But those two things are powerful.
Okay, let's highlight this for a second. Okay. That is a huge pivot, right? From thinking that this is free content to shame on me if you literally sit here and just listen to this show. Like, you will not make progress in your life. And we know that, right? Like, in order for you to make manifest the things in your life that you want to see change, your habit has to change. Your behavior has to change. First, it does absolutely have to do with your beliefs and your thoughts. And then you have to, as a result of your beliefs and your thoughts, wired differently, you do something differently, or else you get the same result. And I think that is so important. I want you all to type a 1 in the chat if you are going to agree to take that with you today. Because why do a podcast so that people sit around and listen to it for 8 years? Nobody's benefiting from that. That means you're all just having like mental masturbation. Like, nothing's like, it's like, what's the point? Like, do something with it, right? So that's really good. And then it is so simple, but it is something that people miss. It's like, ask the person to share. And the thing that you said at the end of that, which I haven't heard, which is so generous of you, is she said that she shares every single one. So what does that mean? That means if somebody is going to share it, that you value that so much that you will post that in your stories. What does that cost you? What does it cost you to do? And it could be everything to this person. It's like, oh my God, Allie Casazza cared enough to share how much I just got out of this episode. That made her feel seen. That is a simple and yet effective strategy. I love it. We'll come back to you, because Allie, it's like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory when you listen to how she built this business and monetize it. So we're going to come back and talk about it. Before we do that, Julie, I want you to answer, because this is really so in your wheelhouse, building audience, right? So there's probably like 9 strategies that you could talk about, and this is what you do. What's one thing that comes to mind that people might be able to start implementing?
Yeah, and it's really what, Allie said. I've always believed that I give my absolute best content for free, always and always will.
Yeah.
Like it is the value. The cream will always rise to the top, and it doesn't matter what, whether you listen to, crime podcasts. It's like the value's entertainment, the value's education, the value, whatever the value may be. I want to make that be the absolute best that it can be. And I think that is the question that you have to ask yourself. Are you willing to be the absolute best that you can be at this? Which means you have to be the absolute version of yourself going into that. And so my content will always be as valuable as possible and free. Now, my energy is expensive, but my content will always be free. And so that, to me, I think is the key, is making it super value driven, and then, making it very tangible and proactive and action oriented. Like Allie said, get people involved. People love to promote things that they feel like they've had a hand in building themselves. And so the more that you can get people involved in, I'll even do things of like, hey, I'm going to do a new logo. You choose which one, because it gets people more invested. They feel like, oh, I chose the logo. I chose this. I chose that. And it gets them to kind of have more skin in the game to want to see what you're doing succeed, because they actually feel like they had a part to play in it.
I love that line so much. My content is free. My energy is expensive. Write it down. I'm seeing a bunch of you already. You got it immediately. You're like on impact. You're like, that's important. That is so brilliant. And I love that both of you just reiterated that idea that your best content should be free. And really, that is also how I've built my business, because information is everywhere, right? And so I've often said this, that you can give people, and you can give people tons of value, really give it away, right? Give it to them. If they then want to implement that information, that's a different story, right? If they want the nuanced coaching around how to master, right, and actually integrate the information, it's different, right? That's a process. But you could literally tell them the steps, and you can do it well. And I think that is a real shift than what we think about. We think that, oh, you have to hold on to it, right? There's some scarcity around that. Like, if I give away too much, it's like, no, because it's not the information. What did Julie say 8 minutes ago? Money is exchanged for energy. Get that? Money is an exchange of energy. So that's where you can show up. You can take the stage. You can take the stage on Instagram. It's already there for you. There's a stage there right now. On the click of a button, people are going to want to soak you up. You can take the stage on your podcast. You can take the stage and do free events, boot camps, challenges, whatever it is. Give it away. And when there comes a time for people who want your energy, like this right now, showing up on this live, this is a very different experience than if people are hearing this on the podcast. It's just different. We're interacting, you're integrating it, you're absorbing it differently, because this energy is here in real time. It's like going to the concert or watching the video of the concert, not the same. Okay, So now let's talk about the monetizing. So once you have started to connect with an audience, Allie, let's talk about the model that you built. Let's talk about, even if you want to just run through like whatever is in your ascension line, like you have this entry product, then you have this, it'd be cool to hear like an overview. And then let's talk about what you really landed on initially as your signature breakthrough way to monetize your podcast.
Yeah. So because my business is all about lifestyle, women's lifestyle betterment, wellness in all aspects, there's just a lot there. So the way I have it broken down right now is there's a few entry level products that are like very, very low cost, like $39, $59, like really like dealing with moms that like have never spent money on themselves is kind of where I'm at. So getting them in the gate and just helping them. Like I'm part of my job too, like what Julia was saying with money being just exchange of energy. A part of my job I've realized over the last 2 years is that I am rewiring their money mindset as I'm getting them into the lifestyle programs. And so that's part of that. So, but then beyond that, there's courses that are like in between like $150 and $2,000. The 2000 we get when we're doing like moms in business. The bread and butter is Your Uncluttered Home, which sits on the site for $300, but I often run ads for $197. That's like the price that I always love to get for that. And then Unburdened, which is my favorite program and the reason that I'm on this earth, and it's $600 right now. Well, it's $800, but when I launch, I do $600. So I do courses, I do programs. That's how I make money. For my podcast, I do not have sponsorships or ads. I've never done that. I think about it often because I'm all about like diversifying my income, but I was actually just thinking about this morning in the shower where all great ideas happen. And I was just like, I don't think I want to. Like I keep trying to make myself and like, sure, I'll get this affiliate link, I guess. And I don't think I want to. So I've been thinking about that lately, but my podcast makes me money because like you were talking, Kathy, about giving them, we're talking about giving them the free for the best of the free. If you don't do that, how do they know how smart you are? If you're giving them the shitty end of the stick, that's their impression of you. Yeah. You know how smart you are. You know what an expert you are, and you know the transformation you can take them on, but how would they know if you don't show them? So my podcast is just a literal like free lead generation tool that funnels them into the deeper work with me. So I don't actually like physically monetize with ads. I never have.
Are you guys getting excited? So your model now, there's a few pieces to it because it's become more sophisticated, but to help them sort of visualize that next step, just repeat which one of those was the first one. And I know that your prices went up, thank the Lord, but when you started, what was the price and which one of those products was the first product?
Okay, Your Uncluttered Home was the first thing I ever made, and it was called Purge Your Entire Home. I soon realized that a word that could also be used for vomiting and shitting your life away might not be great in a course, but we live and we learn. And it was, when it came out, it was $39. But when I started podcasting, it was at $197. Then later I bumped it up, and then that's like my sales price because I realized moms love sales. So
tell them what that first program, what kind of profit that generated for you.
My first program, when I first put it out.
Yeah. Over the first, like, let's say 6 months to a year.
Oh, geez. Well, I don't know exactly, but when I first did it, no one came to my webinar. Nobody bought anything. And it was such a struggle. And then I changed my format a little bit and was like, okay, I still don't have this created. I'm going to pre-sell it still. I'm going to do it a little bit of a different way. And I did like a challenge that led into a big masterclass, and then I sold it. And at $39, I made more money in an hour than my husband did in a month on a $39 product, which I thought was amazing. And it wasn't hard to make that much money, but it was a lot to us. And then I just kept that going, kept learning, kept coming back to the drawing board, kept getting more leads in, kept going. And that's that course is my bread and butter still.
What did you need to add in product or in strategy for you to cross the 6-figure mark and then the 7-figure mark?
My podcast got me to 6-figure months on its own. Absolutely. I did nothing different except before 2018, I was podcasting with another person and it was like a great show, but it just wasn't meant to be. I was feeling unaligned with the messaging. It just wasn't meant to be. And I was not able to shine by myself. And so in 2018, she dropped out and I was like, cool, here I go. And I made my podcast and it brought me to 6 figures. It brought me into 7 figures. 6-figure months started when I started my podcast.
Yeah. Isn't that a mic drop, you guys? I mean, it's amazing.
I wasn't doing ads either. Like there's literally nothing else except I started my podcast.
And here's the thing. It's like, and you started a little bit before me, I think. So you had more of a following than I did. And even still, like you and I are not Gwyneth Paltrow. We're not household names. And through the course of doing my podcast, my revenue is almost $500,000 a month. And it's just like, it's like candy. Like, it's just like, it's like my husband goes, you just print money. And I'm like, it's the exchange of energy, literally. And it doesn't have to be this thing where, oh, you had to get to, 1 million followers. Like, I'm still trying to figure that out. I haven't even begun. In fact, this right now, the reason Colleen is not on video is because for the first time, you guys, today, let's see how it goes. We're going to start running ads on Facebook, evergreen, like constantly to promote. We've never done it. Zero, not $1. So she's doing it right now. She's like, let's set it up. Let's set up an ad so people can find out about you. I'm like, cool, awesome, we'll try it. I mean, it's like unbelievable. It's unbelievable what can happen when you put your energy into the world. And like you said, you don't give them the crappy end of the stick. Show up, give people value. Okay. Julie, what about for you? What was your model? Okay. And you mentioned your course, but you also have a higher level mastermind at this point. So tell us the few things that you have right now that you offer. And what was your first offer? What was your first product?
Yeah. So the 2 main things that I offer right now is my evergreen program, Pitch It Perfect, which was also my first ever offer, and my mastermind Shine. That's it. Like, those are the main 2 things. And then the podcast obviously is the free channel. So that's what I really focus on. The way that I've built all of that, and I think just because of my background as a publicist, I'm always about impact, brand recognition, exposure. Like, people got to put a face with the name. You can't hide and expect to be seen. So it's like, how do we get out there? And for a lot of the women that come to me initially through Pitch It Perfect, that program is for content creators, experts, leaders, professionals who want to pitch and land brand deals, meaning they want to take their social media and they want to make money off of it. It's just that's it. If you want to work with a brand, if you want to collaborate with a brand, if you want to make money from that, and it doesn't just have to be on Instagram. You can collaborate with a brand on your podcast. You can speak on stages. You can collaborate with a brand, with a book deal. I mean, there's multiple ways in which you can do that, but it really does start with building that online platform. And so initially people come to me because they're wanting to be more seen and more known, and they're wanting to make money off of all of the content that they're spending hours and hours and hours and hours a day generating. And then after they do that, a lot of them are like, okay, so this is going great, but I want more. I want to be seen and be recognized more. I'm an expert at what I do, but nobody knows who the crap I am. Like, I want to take all of this stuff that I have now proven and become known as the absolute best at what I do in my industry. I want to be the person that when their Create and Cultivate is doing, an event, they want me to speak on that stage. I'm the person that I'm going to get the book deal to talk about X, Y, and Z. I'm going to get the opportunity to collaborate with this partner. And so we really focus on a lot of that in the high level mastermind, really expanding your name, expanding your vision, expanding the impact out through these opportunities. And the way in which I've done that for myself is through those very opportunities that I now teach and support women in doing themselves. And so when I first started out, I had no following, like moved to LA, was doing the blogger content creation thing, had no followers, but I was consistently making 5, 10, 15 grand a month off of brand deals. Had nothing to do with paid advertisements. Like I just knew how to connect with a brand, talk to them, and work out a collaboration. And so women started coming to me and they were just like, no offense, Julie, but how is it that I have hundreds of thousands of followers and I'm making like, $200 a month off reward style affiliate links, and you have no followers, and you got World Market to renovate your home and they gave you $250,000 worth of furniture and free interior design services? How are you splashed across the website of Mustela and all of these baby brands? Because at the time my son was a baby. Like how are you kind of becoming the go-to influencer for these brands, and you're making this impact, but you have no following? And so I'm like, well, I don't just stop at the following, which is what everyone does, which is why everyone loses out on so much opportunity and money. It's like, you have to think about like, what do you have today that a brand or a partner would find interesting, would find useful? And I'll give you an example. There's a girl in my Pitch It program course. Her name is Cassie. And if you walk into an Ulta today, you will see her splashed all over the store. And her niche is her curly hair. That's it. She is literally in Times Square right now and just signed a 7-figure deal with a product company because she has curly hair. So when people come to me and they're like, I don't have anything to pitch to brands, I don't have anything, like I have nothing to offer. It's like, well, do you have hair? So it's about, again, thinking bigger, stop playing small, stop limiting yourself, enough with that scarcity mentality. We all have something, because we all have our own unique background, experience, life story. You're going to have something that is truly unique to you that a brand can find valuable. It's just your job to figure out what that signature pitch is and then be able to pitch it to the brand. And so I was able to do that very early on, very effectively. And then I turned that method into a program. Then that kind of caught on. And then I started the podcast. And at the time, I was probably making like $250,000 a year. But then from that 1 year and just the awareness that the podcast gave me, I immediately went to 7 figures and then beyond after that. And I'll say kind of the same thing as Allie. I do run ads on my podcast because, again, I don't just stop with the podcast ads. I do collaborations with brands that go beyond that. And I try to think bigger with that. I have a book coming out next year. And so I'm doing a lot of ad spots right now on the podcast with brands because I'm wanting them to sponsor the book tour next year. And so I'm like 5 steps ahead with the strategy of all of this and trying to think of bigger ways to make the impact. But like with Allie, the podcast ads they're like the 6th revenue stream. Like it's not about the money, it's about the relationship for me. I want to build the relationship with these brands. I'm going to say yes, pretty much, not yes to everything, but the brands that I work with are all pretty badass. So if Topo Chico wants to come on and do an ad spot, I'm going to say yes to that, because I'm going to want to go to Dallas and Austin to promote my book next year. And guess who's going to be there? Topo Chico. So I don't think about it of just like, how can I make this quick buck? I'm like, what is the long-term opportunity to build this relationship? It's that long game strategy. And that's really what made me stick out in the beginning when I was up against all of these massive influencers and bloggers. And I mean, Kathy, like I lived in Los Angeles at the time, and Allie, you weren't far from LA at the time. It is the mecca of content creators, bloggers, and it is the top 1% of the top 1%. Like I had everything stacked against me. I wasn't the influencer on the front row of Fashion Week. I wasn't the person with 1 million followers. I didn't have a reality show. I didn't have anything other than my vision and the value and the positive persuasion that I knew how to do, because I know how to pitch, to then give to the brands. Sorry, that was a lot. I can talk a lot about this.
It's so good. I need more exclamation points. Put exclamation points if you're having that mind-blowing moment. It is all about the belief, because what she is articulating is expanding the thought. Instead of stopping, like she's saying, at how many followers do you have? It's like, what do you have that a brand wants? And I remember being at Lori Harder's book launch, and sitting across from me, I actually met so many people at the book launch who became like some of my closest friends. But one of the girls sitting across me is plus size. And because she's plus size, she's done 7-figure deals with all these people because they want her. I remember having a meeting with Podcast One and Wondery, which I haven't yet signed with a podcast network for a bunch of reasons, which we could get into at a different time. And I remember looking at what they were offering me and saying, why? Like, honestly, like, you have all of these other things going on. It's like, well, you're a woman in the business space. And I'm like, oh, like, yeah, that's big, right? I have a friend who's a soldier, a female soldier, right? She came back from Afghanistan. She's being offered all of these incredible things because they want her. Like, they don't care that she has 1,200 followers or mostly made up of her friends and family. They want her. So think about that, right? Really chew on that. And you mentioned Create and Cultivate. And I remember when Jacqueline Johnson and I first met, and she was telling me, I'm putting together this event. So it dawns on me, like, maybe I should reach out to Citibank and say, hey, I'm putting together an event for female entrepreneurs. Do you want to be the main sponsor? Do you want your name associated with helping all of these female, human beings to start their business? Like, yeah, what do you need? Oh, how about $50,000? Great, done. Like, what did that just do for them? Everything. Because now, instead of just being like Citibank, which is like pretty boring, they get to put on their website, look at us. We're amazing. We help females, business owners. Like, oh my God, they just got, if content is marketing, right? If it's about the content, what are you creating that a brand is going to say, I want to get behind it because I want to be associated. I want to look like I'm with it, right? And that's how my friend Jenny grew her vegan corned beef business, because all of these delis, people are like, why would you go to Cantor's and Factor's? Why would you go to Quiznos? Why would you go to Subway? She's like, because they need to get with it. They need vegan products. They want to look like they actually care about, the animals in this world, even though they serve slabs of beef. And they did. And they were like, oh, but could we actually partner with you beyond the meat? Because that would make us look so good. And she's like, sure, because that actually, some people will actually choose the vegan meat. So I'm all for it. And I'm all for the exposure, and let's go. And there it is, right? Created a $50 million brand in 2 stinking years. Because what did she have? She had something that they wanted and that they needed. And she's helping a lot of people stop eating meat. So that's great. I want to thank you both so much. Tell them where they can find you. And you guys, if you feel ever that somebody has the ability to coach you through something, follow up, find out what their programs are about, right? They're not telling me to say this. We do this for each other all of the time, but I am just saying, we don't realize how much we need coaching. Like, we just don't get it, that the more that we have access to people who can open our minds, it's unbelievable what we can create, right? How different is your life right now because of the way that you just spent the last hour and 22 minutes than it would have been had you not been a part of this conversation. So take a screenshot, do a post. If you feel like doing a video, do that. Either way, if you tag me and them, I will repost. And Allie, tell us where we can find you. Tell us about the book that's out. Tell us all the things and where to find all the things.
Yes, Declutter Like a Mother came out in September. It's been a bestseller everywhere. I'm so happy. And you can connect with me on Instagram. Just search Allie Casazza, or it's Allie_that's me, alliecasazza.com. Whatever you need, I'm here to support you.
Awesome. Julie. Oh, wait, you got muted for a second. By the way, the links to their Instagrams are in the chat as you just put in the chat. Go ahead.
I first just want to say, Kathy, to you, just what an honor to be here. And how amazing are you to cultivate such incredible, beautiful, amazing human beings? I mean, what an honor. So it's just amazing. I know that each and every one of you know truly what an honor it is to be in Kathy's queendom. Like, it is truly an honor for each and every one of us to be here. And I love you so much. And thank you, Kathy, for being an example of what's possible, because it permeates. So
thank you so much. That's so sweet.
I loved being here, and I love seeing so many beautiful faces. It lights me up. I think that after the last few years that we have had in this world, like, we need this now more than ever. So thank you all for showing up. It gives me the permission to also do so and the courage to do so. You can find me at Jill Solomon, and the Influencer Podcast is a great way just to soak up, all of the stuff we were talking about. I'm not right for everybody, but I am really right for certain people. And so you may be that person that's ready for that impact. And I would love to support you in any way that I can.
This was just so amazing. I am so honored that I've had so many heart-to-hearts with both of you over the last couple of years. But today I learned things and heard things yet again that I didn't even know. And I'm just always just blown away and surprised almost by the depth of where you're willing to go, how vulnerable you're willing to be, and how real and candid. It's so inspiring. Thank you all for embracing them. Thank you for all of the good energy in the chat. We've seen it, we've enjoyed it. And like Julie said, it's very rare in this world that you can get online and just see and feel something very pure and very good. And today felt like that. And it always does in this community. So thank you guys so much. Have an amazing weekend. Allie, Jules, thank you so much. We're going to put part of this on the podcast. They're going to love it too. Love you guys. Have an amazing weekend.